So after a second 1,000 event in a row for the WTA and some big events on the men's side and some big names actually playing this week for the first time since the Australian Open, let's go have a look at the rankings because there have been some really interesting changes and of course some crazy results as well. So let's start with that. Starting on the ATP side of things, and we had two events last week. First one being in Doha with Rublev beating Draper 7-5-5, 7-6-1 to lift his first trophy of the season, and he got a bit of a boost in the rankings. And in Rio on the clay courts, Baez beats Muller in the final 6-2, 6-3 to lift the Rio trophy again, and both guys got a boost in the rankings. Over on the women's side of things, we only had the one event that was in Dubai, and Andreeva, the youngest WTA 1000 champion, beating Towson in the final 7-6, 6-1, and she also beat Swiatek and Rybakina along the way, which was really impressive, and we'll talk about her ranking in a second. Let's go have a look at the players that dropped and rose from outside the top 10 to start with. Start with Draper. He is number 12 in the world, going up 4 spots higher than last week, which is a career high for him. And had he have won in Doha, he would have been in the top 10. So he's not that far away, Draper, from that top 10 debut. Lehechka, he had a great week last week. He goes up to a career high number 22 in the world, which is 3 spots higher than last week. And Towson, she goes to a career high 23 in the world, 15 spots higher than last week. So players who played really well last week and getting a lot of points have got into their career high rankings for the week. Players who went down in the rankings, Kalinskaya, she dropped down 15 spots to 34 in the world after losing all the points from last year's final of Dubai. Jordan Thompson, he drops down 8 spots, number 37 in the world after losing points from last year. I think he might have won in Los Cabos or something, so he lost a lot of points from not having to play that or not playing that. And Fonseca, he drops down 10 spots after losing all the points from Rio from last year. So unfortunately, after last week's amazing result, and he was just unable to continue that in Rio. He actually lost in the first round of the eventual final as Muller. He's dropped down the rankings to number 78 in the world. All right, so let's start on the WTA side for the rankings now. And no real changes, which is a little bit weird because we did have a 1,000 event. Sabalenka, she's still number 1, with Swiatek at 2 and Gauff at 3, but there was a little change in the middle with Paolini dropping down to number 6 after losing the points from winning Dubai last year, allowing Pegula to go up to number 4, and Keys, who hasn't played since the Australian Open, is at a career high number 5 in the world, which is so crazy to think that, like, you know, she was already at a career high after the Australian Open, but she just keeps on rising the rankings without even having to play. So really funny to see that. Rybakina comes in at number 7, Zhang at number 8, and down the bottom, Andreeva goes into number 9 after winning in Dubai. She goes up 5 spots higher than last week, and of course that's a career high, pushing Navarro down to number 10, and Badosa pushed out of the top 10 completely. So really interesting to see that, and of course Andreeva, now she has to deal with a whole different pressure being a top 10 player. Everyone's going to be gunning to try and beat her. Looking at the race of the finals now, and we're still early in the season, so things are still very, very volatile, but nothing at the top has changed, with Keys at number 1 and Sabalenka at 2, Swiatek at 3. But Andreeva, she flies into that number 4 spot, 17 spots higher than last week. Towson, she goes up 9 spots to number 5 by making the final of Dubai, and Rybakina, by making the semifinals, goes up 3 spots to number 6, pushing Anisimova down to number 7. Badosa goes down to number 8, Alexandrova down to number 9, Gauff goes down to number 10, and Bencic and Ostapenko drop out of the top 10 completely. So, because we've had such random, or at least some different champions over the last couple of months, every time we get a different champion, that person gets into that top 5. Even if the finalists, you know, you can get a massive boost. But of course, with Indian Wells and Miami coming up, this should start to settle a little bit, and we shouldn't see so much volatility in this top 10. Over to the men's side of things now, and we didn't have any changes up the top, with Sinner at number 1, of course suspended for 3 months. Zverev still at number 2, but the point differential between those guys is still so far apart that Zverev is going to have to just sweep the tour while Sinner's not there to be even close to beginning number 1. Alcaraz still at number 3 with Fritz at number 4. Ruud comes in at 5 with Medvedev at 6. Djokovic at 7. De Minaur at 8. We did have a change down the bottom, with Rublev going up 1 spot to number 9 and pushing Paul down to number 10. There was a little bit of a change there, and of course with Dubai and Acapulco next week, and also the Sunshine Double coming up, we should see some changes to the rankings over that time. Over to the race of the finals now, and again, no real changes at the top, with Sinner staying at 1, Zverev at 2, and Alcaraz at 3. But De Minaur, he goes up 2 spots after having a great week in Doha, pushing Djokovic down to number 5 and Shelton down to number 6. Auger-Aliassime goes up to number 7, and Rublev, after winning in Doha, goes up to number 8, 37 spots higher than last week, pushing Paul down to number 9. Lehechka comes back into the top 10 for the first time in a little bit after making the semis in Doha, pushing Shapovalov and Sonigo out of the top 10 completely. So Again, just like on the women's side, there's going to be a lot of volatility around these rankings, but with the next couple of weeks, a massive amount of points up for grabs, we should start to see these things settle a little bit. There it is. Those are the rankings after the first 1,000 events for the ladies. And of course, we've got some big events for the men coming up, and then the Sunshine Double, which is sort of, I guess, the Grand Slam in March that we don't really have. You know, we sort of have a Grand Slam in January. We have obviously the French Open coming up in about May or June. And then this is sort of like March is sort of the big event in the middle of that to kind of keep our appetite before we get to the clay courts, of course, in April, which is going to be a lot of fun. But let me know in the comments below, what's been the craziest thing about the rankings for you this week? And also, how interested are you to see how Jannik Sinner goes, especially in the race to the finals? He's currently number 1, but that could start to change. You know, he could start dropping down over the next couple of months, especially with so many 1,000 events over that time. Remember, 1,000 events are worth 1,000 points. So you get one of those events, you're going to possibly overtake Sinner if you do get one of those big clay court events, or maybe even one of the Sunshine Double events. But there it is. Those are the rankings for this week. No massive changes, but for the next couple of weeks, we should be seeing something.